The first gunshot cracked through the air like thunder on a clear day, sending the stagecoach horses into a panicked frenzy as they thundered across the dusty Arizona terrain of 1879. Constance Morgan clung desperately to her seat, knuckles white against the leather straps as the driver slumped forward, blood blooming across his back like a macabre flower. "Get down," a gruff male voice commanded from somewhere outside the coach. But Constance was not one to cower. Years of managing her late father's business affairs in Boston had taught her to face danger head-on. Gathering her skirts, she leaned out the window, squinting against the swirling dust. 3 masked riders were gaining on the coach, pistols drawn. The stagecoach lurched violently as a wheel caught a rut, nearly sending Constance tumbling. The elderly couple sharing her coach whimpered in terror, the woman clutching her husband's arm with trembling hands. Without warning, another rider appeared from a ridge to their right unmasked, riding hard on a powerful black stallion. Unlike the bandits, his face was exposed, weathered and stern beneath the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat. With precision that spoke of years of practice, he fired 3 shots in quick succession. 2 of the bandits fell from their horses, while the third veered away in retreat. The mysterious rider caught up to the runaway stagecoach, grabbing the reins of the panicked horses and gradually bringing the vehicle to a halt. As dust settled around them, Constance pushed open the door and stepped out, adjusting her hat and brushing the dirt from her traveling suit. "You folks all right?" "He's gone," he announced, removing his hat briefly. "Nearest town is Copper Canyon, about 5 miles east. I can escort you folks there." "That would be most appreciated, Mr. Daniels," Constance said, gathering her traveling bags. "I'm headed there myself to claim my uncle's property." Something flickered across Wade's face, recognition, perhaps, or concern. "Wouldn't happen to be Elijah Morgan's place you're claiming?" "Indeed it is. My uncle's passing was unexpected. I've come to settle his affairs and decide what to do with his ranch." Wade replaced his hat, his expression unreadable. "Well, Miss Morgan, seems like your uncle and I were neighbors. His land borders mine to the south." He hesitated. "Haven't had much cause to welcome newcomers in a long while." Constance studied him curiously. Everything about the man suggested solitude, from his sparse words to the way he maintained careful distance from others. Yet something in his demeanor spoke of a deeper story, one she suddenly found herself wanting to uncover. "I'll help bury the driver proper," Wade said, interrupting her thoughts. "Then we'll get you folks to town before nightfall." As Wade and the elderly man dug a shallow grave for the driver, Constance observed Wade's methodical movements. His hands were calloused and strong, his shoulders broad beneath his worn leather vest. Despite his age, he moved with the vitality of a younger man, though there was a carefulness to his movements that suggested old injuries. By late afternoon, they approached Copper Canyon, a dusty collection of wooden buildings straddling a creek bed, with a church steeple rising above the rest. The town had grown somewhat since Wade had last visited, new construction evident on its edges. "I'll take you to the hotel," Wade offered, guiding the coach down the main street. "They'll have rooms available." "I appreciate that," Constance replied, studying the town that would be her home for at least the next few months. At 32, she had seen enough of life to know that small western towns often concealed complex social hierarchies beneath their simple exteriors. At the hotel, a 2-story wooden structure with a sagging porch, Wade helped Constance and the elderly couple down from the coach. The hotel owner, a portly man named Griffith, rushed out to welcome them. "My word, Daniels, ain't seen you in town for what, 4 months?" Griffith exclaimed. Then, noticing Constance, he hastily removed his hat. "Madam, welcome to Copper Canyon. This is Miss Morgan," Wade said simply. "Elijah's niece from back east." Griffith's eyes widened. "Elijah's kin. Well, I'll be sorry for your loss, Mississippi. Your uncle was a good man." "Thank you," Constance said, offering a polite smile. "I'll need a room while I settle my uncle's affairs." After ensuring Constance and the elderly couple were properly accommodated, Wade lingered awkwardly in the hotel foyer. "That place has been empty 3 months now. Might not be in the best condition. I'm not afraid of a little work, Mr. Daniels." A faint smile tugged at the corner of Wade's mouth, the first Constance had seen. "Never suggested you were, Miss Morgan." He tipped his hat. "Good day to you." As Wade strode out of the hotel, Constance watched him through the window. He mounted his horse with practiced ease and rode out of town without looking back, disappearing into the golden light of the setting sun. The next morning, Constance met with Samuel Whitman, a bespectacled man with thinning gray hair who seemed surprised by her business acumen. "Your uncle's ranch is approximately 500 acres, Whitman explained, spreading a map across his desk. "Good land, with year-round water access. The house is modest but solid. He ran about 100 head of cattle, though I understand the herd's down to maybe 70 now, being managed by a local hand he hired." "And the financial situation?" Constance inquired, studying the map. "Solvent, barely. Your neighbor, Wade Daniels, he's got the biggest spread around these parts, but keeps to himself something fierce," Thomas offered without prompting. "Been that way since his wife and boy died of fever." "Oh, must be 20 years ago now." Constance's interest was piqued. 20 years? He's lived alone all that time?" "Yes'm. Used to be the friendliest fellow in the county, from what my pa tells me. Now he barely speaks 10 words when he comes to town for supplies, which ain't often." "That's a long time to grieve," Constance murmured. Thomas nodded vigorously. "Some say he blames himself. Was away driving cattle to Tucson when the fever took him. By the time he got back, they were already in the ground." As they crested a hill, Constance's uncle's ranch came into view, a modest house with a barn and corral, nestled against the backdrop of rust-colored mesas. And beyond it, perhaps a mile distant, sat another homestead larger, with multiple outbuildings. "That's the Daniels place," Thomas confirmed, following her gaze. "Your uncle and Mr. Daniels, they got along well enough. Shared water rights peaceful-like, which is rare out here." At the ranch, Miguel Sanchez greeted them warmly. A weathered man in his 50s with a kind face, he showed Constance around the property with evident pride. "Your uncle, he was good man," Miguel said as they inspected the small herd of cattle. "He pay fair, treat workers with respect. Not all ranchers do this." "How long did you work for him?" Constance asked. 5 years. Before that, I worked for Mr. Daniels." Constance's eyebrows rose. "You did? Why did you leave his employ?" Miguel's expression grew thoughtful. "Mr. Daniels, he good man too, but after his family die, the ranch. It becomes sad place. Too much sorrow. I have family, children. Need more laughter, you understand?" She did understand. The weight of grief could be oppressive, not just for the one carrying it, but for those around them as well. That evening, after Thomas departed with promises to return in a few days, Constance sat on the porch of what was now her home, watching the sunset paint the landscape in hues of amber and gold. The vastness of the land was both intimidating and exhilarating. In Boston, she had managed her father's importing business efficiently after his death, but had sold it when the opportunity arose. Nothing had tied her to the city, no family, no suitor, no close friendships. The news of her uncle's death and her inheritance had come at a time when she'd been seeking purpose. Movement caught her eye, a rider approaching from the direction of the Daniels ranch. Even at a distance, she recognized Wade's straight-backed posture in the saddle. He dismounted at the fence line, removing his hat as he approached the porch. "Evening, Miss Morgan. Thought I'd check to see if you found everything in order." "Mr. Daniels, how thoughtful," Constance replied, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. "Please, join me." Wade hesitated before sitting, placing his hat on his knee. "Miguel taking good care of things?" "Very much so. I'm fortunate my uncle had such reliable help." She studied Wade's profile in the fading light. "I understand you and my uncle were on good terms. Elijah was fair. We shared water rights from the creek that runs between our properties. Never had cause for disagreement. I came prepared to sell the property, but there's something appealing about this place. The openness, the challenge." She smiled. "I've managed businesses before, though never a ranch." Wade's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "Ranching's no life for a city woman alone, especially with the drought years coming more frequent and cattle prices falling." "Are you trying to discourage me, Mr. Daniels?" "Just stating facts, Miss Morgan." "Well, I appreciate your concern, but I've never been one to shy away from challenges." The conversation shifted to practical matters: the condition of the herd, water rights, the approaching winter. Wade proved surprisingly knowledgeable and forthcoming, offering advice without condescension. As darkness fell completely, He finally rose to leave. I should get back, he said, settling his hat on his head. Thank you for coming by, Constance said sincerely. Your insights have been invaluable. Wade nodded, then hesitated. If you need anything. Well, I'm just over that ridge. I'll remember that. There was something compelling about Wade, not just his physical presence. Though at 48 he remained handsome in a rugged way, but the depth she glimpsed beneath his reserved exterior. One crisp October afternoon, Constance was struggling with a stubborn gate hinge when Wade rode up. Without comment, he dismounted and took the tools from her hands, fixing the gate with efficient movements. You're becoming quite the rancher, he observed, watching her secure the repaired gate. High praise, coming from you, she replied, wiping her brow with her sleeve. Meant sincerely. His gaze lingered on her face a moment before he looked away. Though winter's coming, it can be harsh out here. So I've heard. Miguel has been helping me prepare. Wade nodded, then seemed to come to a decision. I'm heading into the high country tomorrow to bring down some of my cattle before the snow starts. Could use an extra hand, if you're interested in seeing more of the range. The invitation surprised her. I'd like that very much. They set out at dawn the next day, riding into the foothills as the first light gilded the landscape. Constance, wearing practical riding clothes that had raised eyebrows in town, kept pace with Wade easily. Her father had ensured she learned to ride properly in her youth, a skill that had served her well on the ranch. Your riding form is excellent, Wade commented as they navigated a narrow trail. Most Eastern ladies I've known preferred carriages. My father believed women should be self-sufficient, Constance explained. He taught me to ride, shoot, and manage account skills my mother found scandalous, but that have proven quite useful. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. She glanced at Wade. And yours? Wade was quiet for so long that Constance thought he might not answer. Hard man, he finally said. Fought for the Confederacy, came west after they lost. Carried that defeat like a stone in his chest. Taught me ranching, but not much about living. And your mother? Gentle soul. Died when I was 12. Consumption. They rode in silence for a while, the rhythmic sound of hooves on packed earth the only sound. Eventually, they reached a high meadow where several dozen cattle grazed on late-season grass. We'll push them down to the lower pasture, Wade explained. More sheltered there when the snow comes. Working together, they began the slow process of herding the cattle downhill. It was exhausting but satisfying work, and Constance found herself laughing with exhilaration as they maneuvered the reluctant animals through a narrow pass. Near midday, dark clouds began gathering over the distant peaks. Storm's coming, Wade observed. Might not make it back to your place before it hits. What do you suggest? There's a line shack about an hour from here. We can wait it out there. The line shack proved to be a small but sturdy cabin nestled in a stand of pines. They had just unsaddled the horses and secured them in a lean to when the first heavy drops began to fall. Inside, the cabin was sparsely furnished: a small stove, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs, and a narrow cot. Wade efficiently started a fire in the stove while Constance shook out her damp coat. Not much, but it keeps the elements out, Wade said, setting a kettle of water on the stove. I keep it stocked with basic supplies for times like this. It's perfect, Constance assured him, watching as he moved about the small space with familiar ease. The storm intensified outside, rain drumming on the roof and occasional thunder shaking the window frames. They shared a simple meal of jerky, hard biscuits, and hot coffee, talking easily about ranch matters. As the afternoon wore on and the storm showed no signs of abating, Wade began telling stories of his early days in the territory, tales of cattle drives, encounters with Apache warriors, and the characters who had passed through Copper Canyon over the decades. You're a natural storyteller, Constance observed. I wouldn't have guessed it from our first meeting. Wade's mouth quirked. Haven't had much cause to tell stories these past years. No one to tell them to. Tell me about your wife, Constance said gently. Wade stiffened, his hand tightening around his coffee cup. For a moment, she thought he might refuse, but then his shoulders relaxed slightly. Sarah, he said, the name coming out soft as a prayer. She was from Kansas. Schoolteacher. Came west with her brother after the war. Had the gentlest laugh you ever heard, but a spine of steel when it mattered. A smile touched his lips. Gave me hell when I deserved it, which was often enough. And your son? James. He was 7 when. Wade cleared his throat. Smart boy. Quick with numbers, loved horses. Had his mother's eyes. Constance reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. I'm sorry for your loss, Wade. He nodded, withdrawing his hand after a moment. Been a long time now. Time doesn't always heal completely. No, he agreed. But it changes things. Dulls the edges, I suppose. As evening approached, the storm intensified rather than weakening. Wind howled around the cabin, driving rain against the windows with increasing force. We'll have to stay the night, Wade said, looking concerned. Creek might be too swollen to cross safely in the dark, especially with the cattle. I understand, Constance assured him. Miguel will know we were caught by the storm. Wade nodded, though he still looked troubled. You take the cot. I'll make do on the floor. Don't be ridiculous. The floor is cold and hard, and you're too tall to be comfortable there. The cot looks wide enough to share if we're careful. Wade's eyes widened. Miss Morgan, that wouldn't be proper. Constance couldn't help laughing. Mr. Daniels, we're 2 grown adults sheltering from a storm. I trust your honor, and I'd rather neither of us catch pneumonia from poor sleeping arrangements. After much persuading, Wade reluctantly agreed to the arrangement. They settled on the cot fully clothed, back to back, with a blanket between them for propriety's sake. Morning brought clearing skies and a transformed landscape. The world seemed washed clean, with raindrops glistening on pine needles and puddles reflecting the blue sky. Wade and Constance set out early, guiding the cattle down to lower elevations without incident. As they approached her ranch in the late afternoon, Constance noticed Wade growing quieter, retreating back into his shell. When they arrived, Miguel rushed out to meet them, relief evident on his face. Miss Morgan, we were worried when you did not return, he exclaimed. Storm was very bad. There's an honesty to this place. The land doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is, beautiful and harsh and real. Wade's gaze lingered on her face. Like some people, their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Wade looked away first, clearing his throat. Getting late, he said, rising. Thank you for the meal. At the door, he paused. Town's having a harvest dance Saturday next. Wouldn't mind escorting you, if you're interested. Constance smiled, pleased by the unexpected invitation. I'd like that very much. News of Wade Daniels escorting Constance Morgan to the harvest dance spread through Copper Canyon like wildfire. When they entered the festively decorated town hall together, conversation momentarily halted as curious eyes assessed them. Feeling like a curiosity at a county fair, Wade muttered under his breath. Chin up, Mr. Daniels, Constance replied with a smile. Their interest will fade as soon as someone brings out the stronger punch. Sure enough, as the evening progressed and the local band struck up lively tunes, attention shifted away from them. Wade surprised Constance by proving to be a capable dancer, guiding her confidently through several reels and a waltz. You dance well for a reclusive rancher, she teased during a break. Sarah insisted I learn, he replied, a fond memory softening his features. Said no husband of hers would be stepping on her toes at social gatherings. It was the first time he'd mentioned his late wife without pain overshadowing his voice. As winter settled over the land, Wade became a frequent visitor at Constance's ranch. He helped her weatherproof outbuildings, advised on winter feeding for the cattle, and spent many evenings by her fire, gradually opening up about his life and listening intently as she shared stories of her own. The people of Copper Canyon noticed the change in Wade, how he now greeted folks in town, occasionally shared a drink at the saloon, and once even attended a Sunday service. They also noticed how Constance Morgan had transformed her uncle's struggling ranch into a viable operation, earning respect from neighboring ranchers for her determination and quick learning. They're good for each other, was the general consensus, though few expected anything to come of it, given Wade's long isolation. In January, a severe blizzard swept through the territory, leaving deep drifts and bitter cold in its wake. 3 days after the storm, Wade arrived at Constance's ranch to find her and Miguel struggling to free several cattle trapped in a snow-filled gully. Without a word, he joined their efforts, working tirelessly until the last steer was safe. Exhausted and chilled to the bone, they returned to the house as darkness fell. You're staying tonight, Constance insisted as Wade made noises about heading back to his own ranch. The temperature's dropping, And I won't have your frozen body discovered by some passing cowhand in the spring thaw. After a hot meal and several cups of strong coffee, Wade stood by the fire in Constance's sitting room, watching the flames dance. She joined him, passing him a glass of whiskey. "Penny for your thoughts," she said. Wade took a sip before answering. "Been thinking about something Sarah told me once. Said a person could get so used to carrying grief they forget how to set it down, even when their arms are tired." Constance remained silent, sensing he had more to say. "These past months," he continued, his voice low, "working with you, talking with you. It's the first time in 20 years I've felt my arms getting tired." He turned to face her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "You should know, Constance, that I'm not an easy man. Got too used to my own company, set in my ways. Probably too old for new beginnings." "I don't recall asking for easy, Wade," she replied softly. "And as for beginnings, I believe they happen at exactly the right time, regardless of age." Wade set down his glass and tentatively reached for her hand. When she didn't pull away, he brought it to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against her palm. The simple gesture held more meaning than any flowery declaration. "I care for you," he said simply. "More than I thought possible to care for anyone again." "And I for you," she answered, stepping closer. Their first kiss was gentle, a careful exploration that quickly deepened into something more urgent. When they finally parted, Wade rested his forehead against hers, his breathing uneven. "You deserve better than a broken-down cowboy with more past than future," he whispered. "I deserve to choose my own happiness," Constance countered. "And I choose you, Wade Daniels, past and future alike." Spring came early that year, bringing fresh growth and new beginnings. The two ranches began operating as one, with Wade and Constance sharing responsibilities and resources. They were married in April, a simple ceremony in the town church attended by most of Copper Canyon's residents. As summer approached, Wade began construction on a new house situated on the boundary between their properties, a physical symbol of their joined lives. One evening, as they sat on the partially finished porch watching sunset paint the mesas gold, Wade broached a subject that had been on his mind. "Been thinking," he said, his arm around Constance's shoulders. "The Barker place just north of here is for sale. Good land, but the house needs work." "Oh." Constance looked at him questioningly. "Miguel's eldest son is getting married next month. Thought we might offer them the place as a wedding gift, help them get started." He paused. "If you agree, of course." Constance smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. "I think that's a wonderful idea." Wade nodded, seeming pleased by her response. "This land's given me everything," he said, gesturing to the vista before them. "Seems right to pass some of that fortune along." "You've changed," Constance observed, not unkindly. "Have I? When we first met, you warned me I'd regret staying here." Wade chuckled, the sound still rare enough to delight her. "And you said, I never do," she finished. "And I was right. That you were, Mrs. Daniels." He kissed her temple. "That you were." As darkness settled over the land, they remained on the porch, planning their future with quiet confidence. The loneliness that had defined Wade for 20 years had been replaced by a partnership neither had expected, but both now treasured beyond measure. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, the sound carrying clearly in the still evening air. A answering call came immediately, not the lonely song of a solitary creature, but the harmonious reply of one who had found its counterpart in the vastness of the wild.